guys, I'm Retro Critic here, and today I'm continuing my review series of Tom's Tank Engine Friends. And today this is where I'll be continuing my review of each season of Tom's Tank Engine. And in this video I'll be talking about Season 2 of Tom's Tank Engine. Let's get right straight into it. So Season 2 of Tom's Tank Engine came out in 1986. And it was assessed in 1986 in the UK, and then later in the US when it came out in 1990. And like I said, this time they had they had a bigger budget. And I forgot to mention in the previous video. Now it was produced by two companies. It was made by Blue Water Studios that made the models. And it was also produced by Britt Allcroft Productions, which is also, heavily associated with Blue Water Studios. But really, it's a Britt Allcroft company that basically mainly produces Thomas stuff, or basically Britt Allcroft stories. So that's interesting right there. Like I said, Season 2 of Tom's Tank Engine came out in 1986, and it was a big success in the UK in 1986. But Season 2 of Tom's Tank Engine did not came out in 1990 of Shining Tapes, because Season 2 of Tom's Tank Engine did not come out in the US around at least 1990 or 1991. At least around 1991. It came out in 1991 in the US, and they came out in the US through Shining Station. In 1991 through 1992, that's where the Season 2 of Tom's Tank Engine came out through Shining Station. The second season of Tom's Tank Engine was released through Shining Station in the US of PBS. In the PBS TV series in the US. So it's interesting right there. Now, the fascinating part is like I said before, now I forgot to mention in my previous video that Tom's Tank Engine was produced by Blue Water Studios. So, and I did forget to mention in my previous video that the first season of Tom's Tank Engine was produced by Blue Water Studios. And Blue Water Studios also produced the second season, which was a bigger budget. And it was also produced by Britt Allcroft Studios. Britt Allcroft Productions. And Britt Allcroft Productions is associated with Blue Water Studios. And so, yeah, because Britt Allcroft Productions is a company associated with Blue Water Studios, so it's interesting right there. But Britt Allcroft Productions is basically just mainly produced Thomas Thomas seasons, mainly focuses on Thomas or any other shows Britt Allcroft produced. It's mainly her own company of it mainly produces Tom's Tank Engine related of the early seasons, but also it produces anything associated related to Britt Allcroft. Anything Britt Allcroft produced, that's kind of what it produces. But mainly the early seasons, mainly Thomas related seasons. So that's interesting right there. So that's kind of an interesting kind of factoid right there. Definitely. But mainly, Season 2 of Tom's Tank Engine was produced by Blue Water Studios. And had a bigger budget, more money, larger sets, more money, larger sets, more engines was introduced, more engines was introduced, and was reduced, and so on and so forth. And also the second season of Shining Time Station also introduced us Billy Two Feathers, a Native American train engine driver. So we get all these iconic characters, as you can see. And basically, this season's mostly based on Christopher Audrey, mostly Wilbur Audrey stories, or somewhat Christopher Audrey stories. So this season's heavily based on the Railway series. And you get many classics, like, Thomas and Percy feuding, Ghost Engine. This is the first suspenseful episode. I love that one. So on and so forth. And Shining Temptation gave us more George Carlin's. But like I said, and the second season of Shining Temptation also gave us Billy Two Feathers. Billy Two Feathers was a Native American engine driver, who was a train driver, engineer in the railway. So you get all these iconic characters. You get more Mr. Conductor, George Carlin. And like I said, and in Shining Temptation, you're also introduced to George Carlin playing Mr. Conductor. So later in Shining Temptation, you get George Carlin playing Mr. Conductor. So you get all these iconic characters. Like I said, you get all these iconic characters, these cool episodes, and so on and so forth. But specifically the train episodes, you get introduced to more trains, more characters are introduced in this season. Actually, no, a lot of new characters are introduced in this season. It's really cool. So you get so many new characters Boko, Donald Douglas. I think this is the season where it gave us Duck and Duck, Montague, that's his real name, but AK, he's nicknamed Duck. We get Diesel introduced in this season, which is like one of my favorite episodes of the series. I'll go on. You get so many new characters, so on and so forth. You get Boko in the scene. I love the Boko episode, the Diesel. Bill, but I forgot. You get Bill and Ben. I always have fun with Bill and Ben. You get Donald, and you get introduced to Donald Douglas. Diesel, probably one of the first villains. Probably one of the first villains of the series. You get introduced to Diesel in the series. And the Diesel episodes are like my favorite episodes. Like I said, we get introduced to a trans named Montague, but we nickname him Duck. That's his real name, Montague, but we nickname him Duck. And the clash between Duck and Diesel are introduced, and I love that. So like I said, the Diesel episodes are my favorite, but I love the back and forth of we get introduced to both. We'll basically get introduced to both of them clashing each other, both of them kind of fighting. But I love the back and forth between Duck and Diesel. I love the chemistry and back and forth between. I love the chemistry and back and forth between Duck and Diesel, And Duck, Duck likes to mess around, he's really prideful, and Diesel is a scheming revolutionary, is possibly maybe a racist diesel engine, and so on and so forth. So you get really so many cool bits introduced in this season. And one more thing, and, I love and like I said, you get episodes where, you get an episode where, I think the first episode, Thomas and Percy are fighting, they make amends to the end, there's, Axe and Percy. They mess around with each other, they kind of, it questions their, kind of questions their friendship, and it's about respect, friends, and looking out for your friends, and question friendship. So that episode kind of challenges their friendship, but they make amends. So they kind of work stuff out, and they make amends, and I like that episode. We get the introduction of Donald Douglas, and you find an evil racist van. So you get a lot more plot points in this season. I really love that. And like I said, you get Duck and Diesel, close shave. But I love the part where we're introduced to Diesel, who's this conniving, evil Diesel, who's a revolutionary. He thinks there's going to be a Diesel revolution or something like that. That's why he says we're revolutionary. He thinks there's there's going to be a Diesel revolutionary, or Diesel's a revolutionary part of the future. And that's where you get the famous line, we're revolutionary. That's where you get the iconic line where Diesel says, but that's why we get the iconic, memorable line where Diesel says, we are revolutionary. Because Diesel thinks Diesels are the future of something, ahead of steam engines or something like that. So I like how he's kind of racist towards steam engines, because he thinks Diesels are ahead of steam, are the future besides steam engines. So he's a little bit racist. So he's a little bit racist, evil, conniving, and you get Duck, who's prideful, Duck, who's smart. Duck, who's a smart aleck, calls out his Duck, and I like how Duck does not hold back and calls out his bullshit, and so on and so forth. And Duck, I like how Duck kind of outsmarts. So I like how kind of Duck tricks him. I like how Duck kind of outsmarts him, kind of outsmarts Diesel. So I love that. I really like that episode. Diesel pulling the trucks. I even like that episode of A Close Shave. I like that close shave of that Duck chase scene, I guess, so on and so forth. There's so many iconic, memorable episodes. James Edward, the chase scene. I love the Donald episode where he fight an evil, racist van, where Donald kind of confronts a racist, evil van. I love the episode where James is on a run. I love the episode The Runaway where James and Edward clash, and there's an awesome chase scene because of Edward and James, because James somebody messed with his controllers or something, some kid. He's on the run, and somebody pull a lever and he's on the run. But I like it of the banter between James and Edward early on in that episode, where James and Edward, James is not respectful to Edward, and James is very arrogant to Edward. But when James is trying to kind of outshow, when James is trying to be a show off and trying to show he's better, when James is trying to show he's better than Edward, and then all of a sudden these instead of these kids hit his. Play around his lever, and then call it around, but okay, let me explain. So James's fireman had a break. They took a his fireman, James's fireman, his driver took a break. His driver and his fireman took a break, and these kids these kids out of nowhere played around and kind of pull his lever or something. Now it's been said the kids later got caught, but that's how James was on the run. Now it's been said the kids got caught, but that's how James was on the run. That's how James he's out of control. He can't control his wheels. He can't control his moves. Something like that. And that's where Edward, and that's why the episode is called The Runaway. Where James is on the run, where he can't move, he can't control his own wheels, so on and so forth, and that's where Edward has to save James, where Edward has to rescue James, and that's why the episode is called The Runaway. So I really like the episode of The Runaway, because, you know, later on, you know, you have this cool chase scene, and, like, James kind of apologizes to Edward, and they make amends, and James has more respect for Edward, because Edward saved James. Edward rescued James. And I like how heroic, wise, so like I said, I like how heroic, wise, and smart Edward is to James, and, so I like how heroic Edward is, and after he saves James, James has more respect for Edward, because Edward's wise and smarter, and like I said, because, you know, Edward's like wise, Edward's smarter, Edward is wise. My point is, so after Edward saves James, I like how James apologizes to Edward, and James has more respect for Edward. I really like that. I like how they made amends. So it's really good writing and good action pack. And like I said in the episode where, like, James and Edward, like, you know, I like how James and Edward made amends, and James has more, you know, respect for Edward, and James now looks up to Edward. I like that. And James now looks up to Edward like that. So, and like I said, and that's why I really like the episode of Runaway, because you get a lot of cool chase scenes, but also good writing of character development. Because, like I said, you get like a really cool chase scene in this episode, but there's some good writing here too in this episode. Where in this episode, you know, there's some good writing. You get some good writing with the characters, and there's some good, like, character development in this episode, and that's what I really like about that. And that's what I really like about that in that episode. So that's what I really like about that in this episode, and that's really cool right there. So I'll go on, and like I said, and there's the episode, like, Ghost Engine, where, like, you know, Thomas tells us a scary story, Percy, but then Percy tries to scare Thomas back. I love that. And there's actually some cool suspense. You know, he hits some sugar, and he, like, tries to disguise himself as a ghost. I like that. But like I said, this episode is like one of the first suspense episodes of Thomas, and it's really good. Because like I said in this episode, Thomas tells a spooky story to Percy. Like, basically, Thomas tells a ghost story to Percy. He tries to like, you know, scare Percy with his tales. But then Percy tries to scare Thomas back because he hits some sugar. Because there's like a scene where, like, Percy, like, hits some, like, sugar powder at one point, and the powder, you know, caught on him or something. And then he decided, like, played a prank with Thomas, and then where Percy tried to scare Tom. And then Toby got in on it. And then later in the episode, Percy successfully scares Thomas. And then later in the episode, Percy successfully scares Thomas. And I like how Percy plays a prank on Thomas, and he successfully pulls a prank on Thomas. And I like how Toby got in on the joke. And I like how Toby got in on the prank. So I really like that. So it's a really fun episode, and you know, and they scare Thomas and so on and so forth. But like I said, there's some really good suspense in this episode. Really good, like, atmosphere shots, really good cinematography. I love that. And like I said, this is the first, like, horror episode of Thomas. This is the first spooky episode. This is, like, the first spooky episode of Thomas. This place, supernatural. And like I said, there's plenty of, like, ghost episodes in the series. First ghost episodes in the series. And like I said, there's also, like, later supernatural episodes in the series. And I'll go on so on and so forth. But like I said, there's, like, really good, like, shots of atmosphere and suspense. I really love that. It's actually amazing. There's some really cool cinematography of, like, the lighting and the dark and the fog. I love that. Of the lighting and the dark and the fog and the dark fog and the dark night lighting. I really like that. Really good tension right there, suspense. So really good episode. I love that. Really good episode. I love that. And like I said, it's also, you know, like I said, this season is also directed by David Minnen. Amazing guy. I'll go on and on. So I really love the spooky Ghost Train episode. And like I said, this season is directed by David Minnen. David Minnen, a fantastic TV director. You know, David Minnen has done fantastic work on TV. I will go on about him. But like I said, the second season is based purely on Wilbur Awdry's stories and Christopher Awdry's. So the second season is purely based on the Railway Series books. Based on the Railway Series books, mostly by stories written by Wilbur Awdry and some stories written by Christopher Awdry. So, you know, so that's kind of what these episodes are based on. And you got a lot of cool, fun episodes in this series. And like I said, it's directed by David Minnen. Fantastic guy. Dave's done a phenomenal job directing this season. And like I said, David Minnen's a really good TV director. He's done a lot of phenomenal work on TV. David Minnen has done a lot of phenomenal work, like I said. Phenomenal guy. But yeah, David Minnen, you know, directed this season. And David Minnen, I would say, did a really good job directing this season. I would say that, David Minnen did a really good job directing this season. He's done a phenomenal job. Really good. Really good on like cinematography and lighting and shot. Really good. Like he's really good at like I would say he's good at like atmosphere shots and like some breeze shots. He's really good at that. I think he's really underrated at that, especially when you get to the third and fourth season. But like I said, and I really like his style of I like his style of direction. I like his cinematography is really good. I would say his cinematography is really underrated actually. Especially when you get to the third, fourth, fifth season. You know, I'm going on and on, but. Really good on like atmosphere. I love his breathe shots. Good atmosphere. Really good weather shots. Really good on like horizontal. So he's really good on like weather shots. He's really good on horizontal. He's really good at like horizontal lens camera positions of that. I'll go on so a lot of good standard shots. So like I said, there's a lot of good like standard direction shots and really good camera angles. But I like his structure of these episodes. I like his structure of these episodes. I like the witty dialogue of these episodes. So I like the charm. I like the witty dialogue of these episodes. I like the witty charm of these episodes. You know, I'll go on and on. But then that's kind of how I feel about that. And those are my thoughts on that. So and that's really cool. And so really all fascinating. And that's kind of how I feel the second season. And like I said, in this season it was produced by Britt Allcroft and Rick Sicilco. Yeah, let me pronounce that name better. Yeah, I want to pronounce his name a little correctly more better. Rick Sicilco. And Rick Sicilco produced the American version. And the second season, my favorite. Rick Sicilco. The second season of Tom's Tank Engine is my favorite season of Tom's Tank. And that's just because it's like one of the first seasons I saw, and it's a great introduction to the show, in my opinion. And I like how George doesn't like want to talk to him, you know. And like I said, I think it's sweet that George Carlin wants to show his humble side, his sweet side, kids. You know, because she wants to show his soft side of families. Like I said, and this is my favorite season of the series because it's just really action, it's suspenseful, a lot of cool crashes, it's suspenseful. So, like I said, Tom's Tank Engine was produced by Britt Allcroft and producer Rick Sicilco. I pronounce that name, Rick Sicilco. And Rick Sicilco produced the U.S. version of Tom's Tank Engine. But yeah, Britt Allcroft and Rick Sicilco produced Tom's Tank Engine. And like I said, Britt Allcroft did the British version. And like I said, Rick Sicilco, let me pronounce that name. Yeah, I want to pronounce that name more correctly. Let me pronounce that name better. Yeah, I want to pronounce that name more correctly, like I did last time. But yeah, Rick Sicilco produced the American version of Tom's Tank Engine. And Britt Allcroft did the UK version of Tom's Tank Engine. And this was the last season where Ringo Starr departs. So this is the last season that Ringo Starr did of Tom's Tank Engine. And he even did the US dub of Tom's Tank Engine. And he left because for creative differences, and he wants to go back to. But like I said, this was the last season that Ringo Starr did. This last season that Ringo Starr narrated, and Ringo Starr even did the U.S. versions too. And the last thing that Ringo Starr did was that he narrated the second season of the U.S. version of Tom's Tank Engine. And I gotta tell you, he did a tremendous job. In fact, I think he sounds less mundane, he sounds more enthusiastic. He sounds way more better and energetic in this season. That's why I really like him in this season, so on and so forth. Now, and George Carlin stepped in because, you know, he wanted to show his soft side. He's a vulgar. Now, George Carlin is a loudmouth, foul comedian. And I just kind of like it how he wanted to show his soft side to parents and families. His good, and that's why he did Tom's Tank Engine. So it's good soft side. It sounds like a grandpa narrating. That's what I like. And like I said, I like it how George Carlin always says that he wants to never talk down to children, respect them as kids. You know, respect them never insult them. I love that. Because I like how George Carlin in interviews says that he never wants to talk down to the children. He always wants to respect the children, treat them seriously, gently talk to them, gently respect, like he doesn't want to insult the kids' intelligence. Like, he doesn't want to insult their intelligence. He doesn't want to talk down to them in a bad way. He wants to be gentle when he talks to them. He wants to never talk down to the kids in a bad way. He wants to gently talk to the kids and be generous and tell them lessons and give them real life lessons and stories and so on. Actually like respect, like always I like how he definitely respects the looks. So I like it how he actually he respects but at the same time he looks out for. So I like how at the same time he looks out for the children, but at the same time I like how George Carlin actually respects the children. I really like that about George Carlin. That's really sweet of him. Really sweet and kind of him. And like I said, George Carlin's narration here, he sounds like a grandpa telling his kids stories. George Carlin's narration here, George Carlin sounds like a grandpa telling his kids bedtime stories. Telling his kids tales of Tom's Tank Engine bedtime. That's what he sounds like. Sounds like a grandpa telling his kids. yeah, George Carlin sounds like a grandpa telling his kids stories, telling his kids tales, something like that. That's what George Carlin sounds like to me. But like I said, I really like the second season of Tom's Tank Engine. I mean, the second season of Tom's Tank Engine is my favorite season of Tom's Tank Engine. You know, I mean, and that's just kind of because it's like one of my first introduction of Tom's Tank Engine. You know, and you know, I mean, this was like my introduction to Tom's Tank Engine, actually. The second season of Tom's Tank Engine. And the second season of Tom's Tank Engine is my favorite season of Tom's Tank Engine. And that's just because, like I said, there was a lot of character development. There's a lot more action, crashes, and thrills. There's a lot more character development in this season. You get more trains and engines introduced in this season. You get a lot more action, thriller, and suspense in this season. You get a lot more crashes in this season. It's a whole lot more fun. That's what I really like about this season. It means a balance between all of that, and that's really why I really like this season. And now, when we get to which narrator is better, now, I kind of prefer George Carlin, but there's times I really like the U.S. version of Ringo Starr here in this season. Because in this season, I think Ringo Starr is at his best here. He's more energetic in the U.S. dub. Because he sounds a lot more less monotone, mundane in the UK than in the U.S. dub. Like Ringo Starr sounds less mundane, monotone like he was in the UK dub, but he sounds a lot more better in the U.S. dub. Now, I'm going to do a compare-contrast comparison of the narrations of Ringo Starr and George Carlin. And I'm going to compare the narrations of Ringo Starr and George Carlin. So here we go.
Pour down! Help! I'm choking! Cried Thomas. Get me out! Percy was worried, but he couldn't help laughing. Thomas's smart blue paint was covered in coal dust from smoke box to bunker.
Pour down. Help! Help! Cried Thomas. Get me out! Percy was worried, but he couldn't help laughing. Thomas's smart blue paint was covered in coal dust from smoke box to bunker.
Every wise engine knows that you cannot trust trucks. Go on, they yelled, and bumped Percy's driver and fireman off the footplate. Oh, said Percy, sliding past the board. Percy was frantic. That's enough.
Every wise engine knows you cannot trust freight cars. Go on, they yelled and bumped Percy's driver and fireman off the footplate. Ow, said Percy, sliding past the board. Percy was frantic. That's enough!
So that was my compare and contrast of the narrations of Ringo Starr and George Carlin. So that was my comparisons of the narrations of Ringo Starr and George Carlin, and I hope you enjoyed. Now, I actually kind of prefer the George Carlin one in this one, but I kind of slightly like the Ringo Starr one more here. Like, I would say it's really tied in this season, because I actually really like Ringo Starr here as the narrator here. But I personally prefer George Carlin more in this season, in my opinion. And that's kind of why I think Ringo Starr is kind of at his best here, and he's giving his all in this season. I mean, this is why I really like the U.S. dub of Ringo Starr, because Ringo Starr is actually more energetic in this season. He's more enthusiastic in this season. You know, he gives more oomph and energy of the voices in this season. He gives more effort and energy in the voices in this season, of his narration this season. That's really what I like about his narration of this season. But there's times I really like the George Carlin version of events. It's charming. So there's times I really like the Ringo Starr U.S. version of his narration of Tom's Tank Engine, and there's times I really like the George Carlin narration of Tom's Tank Engine. So that's kind of how I feel about that. But for now in this season, I would definitely say I kind of prefer George Carlin more because I grew up with him more, and I just like his wee dialogue and charm of this season. And other than that, but like I said, I really prefer Ringo Starr. I really prefer George Carlin's narration of this season. It's a really good season. This is my... I was introduced to VHS tapes of this season. This is definitely one of my favorite seasons. I mean, I was introduced to VHS this season. This is why this is my favorite season. Because, I mean, this was where I was first introduced to VHS tapes of this season of Tom's Tank Engine. And this is definitely... And there's there's definitely a lot of... And there's a lot of good reasons why this is my favorite season, like I said before in this video. like I said in this video. But I definitely prefer the George Carlin version for the most part. I mean, but this is why I really prefer the George Carlin narration more than the Ringo Starr one. Because I just like his witty charm, I like his style and his wit of humor in this season. I just like his voice acting talent overall as a whole. He just gives a more comedic flair to the voices of this season. But his narration is gentle and calm, and that's what I like. But like I said, I mean, George Carlin gives more comedic flair in this season. And he just gives more style, and I love his comedic flair of certain character voices. I love his narration. And I just like his gentle voice. I just like his gruff voice. I just like his style. I just like his voices of characters. Narration's great. I mean, his voices of certain characters and his accents he gives them, like Donald Douglas, is really great. I like his narration this season. So, and I do like his gentle, calm demeanor in later seasons too, especially in this season. And at the same time, I like George Carlin's voices for characters. Like, he gives certain accents to certain characters. Like, I like his Scottish accents for Donald Douglas. I like his voice to Donald Douglas. So I like his Scottish accents he gives for Donald Douglas. I like his Gordon voice. I like his really gruff Gordon voice, course, and at the same time, I love his arrogant, naive, pompous Gordon voice. I love his pompous Gordon voice. And like I said, I like his demeanor of this season when he voices the narration. I really like his narration of this season, especially seasons later on. I really like his narration later seasons later on. And I just always like his gruff voice, but also his gentle demeanor, gentle, calm voice, his grandpa-like voice when he narrates this season. So those are my thoughts on that. So now I'm going to do a top 8 favorite episodes of Season 2. So now this is my top 8 favorite episodes from Season 2, and it comes in no particular order. So here's the list. So number 8, Thomas, Percy, and the Coal. Number 7, Old Iron. Number 6, Duck Takes Charge. Number 5, Pop Goes the Diesel. Number 4, Dirty Work. Number 3, A Close Shave. Number 2, Percy's Predicament. And number 1, Ghost Train. Now, and here are some honorable mentions. And here are some honorable mentions I want to mention here. Another episode I want to mention that I really like is Woolly Bear. I do really like the episode Woolly Bear. And I even like episodes like Birdie's Chase. Birdie's Chase is a good one. I really like that one. Really good episode. Wrong Road. I really like the episode Wrong Road. That's a good one. Edward's Exploit. I really like the episode Edward's Exploit. That's a really good episode. Tom's Comes to Breakfast is a good one. I really like Tom's Comes to Breakfast. Diesel is good. The Diesel is a really good episode. I really like the Diesel episode. The Deputation is a good one. Brakeman. I like the Brakeman episode. The Runaway. I really like the episode The Runaway. Better Late Than Never is alright. I think Better Late Than Never is an okay episode. Percy Takes a Plunge. I really do like the episode Percy Takes a Plunge. That's a fun episode. So, I mean, there's just so many. So, like I said, there's just so many good episodes in this series. I'll go on. And so that was my top 8. So that was my top 8 favorite episodes from Season 2. And those are also some honorable mentions of episodes from Season 2. And, like, look, there's just so many good episodes from Season 2 that I really liked. I had a good time with. I mean, and, like, look, and there's just so many good episodes that I really liked from Season 2. I have a lot of favorite episodes from Season 2. And that's all I gotta say. And so those are my thoughts on Season 2. So those are my thoughts on that. So those are my thoughts on the narration. Those are my thoughts on the second season of Tom's Tank Engine. And I give this season an 8 out of 10. Definitely an 8 out of 10. Maybe 9. And like I said, those are my thoughts on the narration of Tom's Tank Engine. And those are my thoughts on the second season of Tom's Tank Engine, and that's all I gotta say. But I definitely give the second season of Tom's Tank Engine an 8 out of 10. Maybe 9 out of 10 at times. I don't know, we'll see. Sometimes, We'll see. But overall, those are my thoughts on that. And I don't have much to say, so that's pretty much it. Pretty much it of all I gotta say. And so those are my thoughts on that. And so guys, I'm Retro Critic, and I'm out. And I'll see you guys later. And I'll see you guys next time. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out, and bye.